We all think we know the story of Tutankhamun's tomb, a treasure trove discovered by chance and found perfectly preserved, the glittering final chapter in the story of the boy king. But the evidence tells a very different story. A story of a rushed burial, of second-hand treasures, and a tantalizing possibility that the tomb's greatest secret has been hiding in plain sight for 100 years. For a century, we've been told a version of the truth. Tonight, we uncover the rest. November 1922. 4 years. British archaeologist Howard Carter had been relentlessly searching Egypt's Valley of the Kings. On November 4th, his team uncovered a single buried step. 22 days later, with his patron Lord Carnarvon at his side, Carter made a small hole in the doorway at the bottom of the stairs. He held up a candle, its flame dancing in air, sealed away for over 3,000 years. "Can you see anything?" Carnarvon asked. Carter's reply would become legendary. Yes, wonderful things. And they were. The tomb, known as KV62, was overflowing with more than 5,000 artifacts, gilded chariots, intricate jewelry, golden thrones, and haunting statues guarding the burial chamber itself. While there was evidence of ancient robberies, the tomb was remarkably intact, a miracle compared to others in the valley. Carter and his team began the painstaking process of cataloging every single object, a task that would take them the better part of a decade. On February 16, 1923, the sealed burial chamber was finally opened, revealing the magnificent sarcophagus of Tutankhamun. Inside, nested within a series of golden coffins, was the boy king himself, his face covered by that now iconic solid gold death mask. The discovery was a global sensation. It cemented Tutankhamun's place in history and gave the world an unprecedented window into the opulence of ancient Egyptian royalty. This is the story told in museums and documentaries for 100 years. But it's a story that leaves out the most fascinating, and frankly, the most bizarre details. The first clue that something was off: the tomb itself. For a pharaoh, it's shockingly small, more like a minor nobleman's tomb than a grand royal resting place. So why was one of Egypt's kings buried in a space so unworthy of his status? The running theory is that Tutankhamun's death, at just 19, was completely unexpected. His own grand tomb was probably nowhere near finished. So, in a rush, the royal priests had to find a substitute. The tomb we know as KV6 likely wasn't built for a king at all. It was probably intended for a high-ranking official, or maybe even a queen, and was hastily repurposed to house the young pharaoh. This theory of a rushed, makeshift burial is backed up by the tomb's contents. While they look magnificent, many of the treasures seem to be second-hand. They show clear signs of being altered, with names scrubbed and replaced with Tut. It's as if the priests raided other royal storerooms, grabbing whatever they could to throw together a fitting burial. But the most compelling evidence for this recycled tomb comes from the artifacts themselves. Objects that tell a story, not of Tutankhamun, but of someone else entirely. Tucked within the king's mummy wrappings, Carter discovered 2 daggers. One had a blade of gold. The other was far more mysterious. Its blade was made of iron. This was baffling. When Tutankhamun died, Egypt was in the Bronze Age. Iron smelting wasn't common practice yet, which made the metal rarer and more valuable than gold. So where did this blade come from? In 2016, a scientific analysis gave an incredible answer. The iron wasn't from Earth. X-ray analysis revealed high concentrations of nickel and cobalt, a chemical signature that perfectly matches iron from meteorites. The blade was literally forged from a fallen star. To the ancient Egyptians, who worshipped the sky, anything that fell from it was seen as a divine gift. Evidence even suggests the dagger was a royal gift, imported from a neighboring kingdom with more advanced metalworking skills. But it's not the only object that seems out of place. The most famous artifact of all, the solid gold death mask, holds its own secret. Look closely, and you'll see the ears are pierced. This was common for women and children, but not for adult male pharaohs of the time. There's also evidence that the cartouche with Tut's name was altered, and the faceplate itself may have been soldered onto a headdress made for someone else. So who was it made for? The leading candidate is one of the most powerful and mysterious women in Egyptian history, Queen Nefertiti. It's thought that the mask, and perhaps many of the other burial goods, were originally created for her. When Tutankhamun died suddenly, they were just repurposed for his burial. The glorious story of a boy king laid to rest begins to crumble, replaced by a much stranger tale, a burial patched together from the legacy of a queen. And this is where the story takes its most dramatic turn. The small tomb, the repurposed treasures, the mask possibly made for a woman, they all point to one explosive theory, championed by British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves. He believes Tutankhamun's tomb is just the lobby of a much larger burial complex, and hidden behind the walls of the burial chamber is the real prize, the undiscovered tomb of Queen Nefertiti herself. Reeves's theory started by studying high-resolution digital scans of the tomb's walls. These scans revealed the texture beneath the painted plaster, showing faint vertical lines and cracks what Reeves believes are the ghostly outlines of two sealed doorways, plastered over and painted to be forgotten. One doorway probably leads to a storeroom, but the other, on the north wall, is the one that could rewrite history. For a century, the painting on this wall was thought to show Tut's successor performing a death ritual for him. But Reeves argues we've got it backward. It actually shows Tutankhamun performing the ritual for Nefertiti. He believes that when Tutankhamun died, the priests just opened the entrance to Nefertiti's existing tomb, sealed him in the antechamber, and then plastered and painted over her burial chamber door, hiding it in plain sight for over 3,000 years. Initial infrared and radar scans did show some tantalizing temperature changes and hints of voids behind the walls. However, follow-up scans have been inconclusive or have come up empty, and many prominent Egyptologists, including Zahi Hawass, remain highly skeptical of the theory. Still, the idea lingers. The tomb is the wrong size and shape for a king, but it's a perfect fit for a queen's burial. The artifacts seem to have belonged to a woman, and the walls themselves seem to be hiding something. For 100 years, the world has been captivated by the story of Howard Carter and the wonderful things he found. We've looked at the golden mask and seen the face of a boy king, but we may have been looking at the wrong story all along. The evidence points not to a triumphant, perfectly planned burial, but to a rushed, improvised affair. A young king, dead too soon, placed in a borrowed tomb, and surrounded by second-hand treasures, and sealed away behind him, forgotten by time, may lie the very queen whose tomb he's borrowing. Is Nefertiti really waiting behind that painted wall? Only time and more investigation will tell. But one thing is certain, Tutankhamun's tomb isn't done giving up its secrets. It's a powerful reminder that history is never a closed book. There are always new layers to uncover, and untold stories still waiting silently in the Valley of the Kings. What do you think? Is Nefertiti's tomb hidden in plain sight? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to keep unearthing the greatest mysteries of the ancient world, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And check out our other video on the lost city of Atlantis right here. Thanks for watching.